I tried to figure out how to do this where it would show my face while I was recording so that it would feel like I was actually there, but I couldn't figure it out, so I gave up. But I want to apologize for missing another day with you guys. It's totally stuff beyond my control. And so I did the best that I could with at least having some sort of lesson so that you guys should follow through it. So as you go through, it'll be kind of set up like class where I'll explain a little bit and then I'm going to let you guys work a few problems on your own and back and forth. So you guys will have to be able to pause as you're going through so that you can work stuff out before playing to continue. Okay? So we're going to be covering two things, parametric equations and lines. And you've probably never heard of parametric equations before. And that's okay. Lines should all be stuff that's familiar to you guys. You've done it before. So the second part should be a review for you guys. So we're going to start with a warm-up just like we do in class, and so we want to evaluate the difference quotient for that function. And if you guys remember, this bottom part is your difference quotient, and we're doing that to this function. So the steps would be to substitute in x plus h first and get that. Once you have that, then you're going to put it into the fraction that's down here, and then after you have that, you just reduce it and see your answer. So go ahead and pause this video and then work it out on your paper, and when you're ready to check your answer or if you get stuck, you can hit play again. Okay, so hopefully you've actually worked that out. The first step would be to substitute x plus h in for the x, and so that's what that looks like. I substituted x plus h in here, and then we FOIL that out or distribute it out. So I still have the 5 on the outside. Inside is x squared plus 2xh plus h squared, and then that plus 2 just came down next to it. Now we distribute the 5. So we have 5x squared, this becomes 10xh, and this becomes 5x squared. And so now we finished with our f of x plus h. So that first part of the fraction here is done. So the next thing to do is substitute it all into the fraction. So we get this. This part right here where the arrow is, that's your f of x plus h. And then this part right here, that's the original f of x that you see here. And then it's all over h. Okay, we're going to distribute this negative right here. So we get minus 5x squared minus 2. We cancel out everything that subtracts. So the 5x squared and the 2 go away. And then you're going to cancel out the h's because all you have left is this middle part right here. So when you cancel out the h's, you get that, leaving you with a 10x and then a 5 and one single h left. So you end up with this as your answer, and hopefully that's what you got. Okay? Okay, so here are your objectives. Write that down. I may check it on Thursday when I'm back just to make sure that you actually followed as if this were a real lesson. So you can pause here until you're done writing it. Okay, and you see that parametric equations, you don't know what that is yet. So none of this objective makes sense to you right now. When we get to the end of the lesson, I want you to go back to it and hopefully it'll make more sense to you, okay? So we're going to start with this example. Write it down in your notes, hit pause, and then when you're ready, I'll continue. Okay, and I want you guys to set up a 4-column table. If you have about 7 rows, that's the right number of rows. I think this one has 8 rows, but you only need 7 rows. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Hit pause until you're done. Okay, and what we're doing is we have two separate equations. We've got an x equals something and a y equals something. We're going to pick numbers for the t. We're treating t as if it were normally how we would treat the x. So I'm going to pick some numbers for t. I like to pick these numbers, -3 all the way up until 3. That way I get a few negatives, I get a 0, and I get some positives. But you guys can pick whatever numbers work for the function. It doesn't matter what you pick for t as long as you get a good representation. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to plug these t's into both of the equations that they gave us. So for example, if I plug -3 into the t here, I get 2 times -3 makes -6, plus 1 gives you a -5. And then if I plug it in over here, I get -3 squared minus this 3, so it's 9 minus 3, which is 6. And so that now makes a point. So we solved for x and we got -5. We solved for y and we got 6. So we have a point that's -5 and 6. So that's what we're doing, is we're solving for x and y so that we have an ordered pair. Okay. So I want you guys to go through the rest of these solve them out, get your points, and then just hit pause while you do that, and when you finish, you can check your answer and I'll have the answers come up. Okay, so hopefully you got those answers. Just check yourself, make sure you did it all right. Okay. And so the next step is that you're going to graph it, and so each of these points becomes a point on the graph. So the first one would be negative 5, 6, and then you have negative 3, 1, negative 1, negative 2, 1, negative 3, etc. And you notice that we actually have kind of this parabola looking thing, so that's cool. It doesn't always work out that way. And then the last thing is that you can actually connect them. And so you would have that shape. So that's all there is to it. Pick some numbers for t. You have the freedom to pick the numbers that you feel comfortable with. Substitute them in for x and y, and then you get points, and you just plot those points and you get your answer. Okay. So on the paper that you should hopefully already have, it's the one that's titled Parametric Equations. Go ahead and do problems 9 through 12, and I don't have the answers posted on here, so you need to check with your neighbors just to be sure that you're correct, and if everybody gets the same answer, you're probably okay. And if you don't have this paper yet, obviously ask the substitute for it. It should be in the folder. So pause here, do those problems, and when you're done, come back and we'll go on to the next section. Okay, so the next thing is evaluating at a single point, and we're basically doing what we did in the last one. It's just a lot less because you only have one t value that you have. So here are our two equations, and they're asking us for us to evaluate at t equals 5. So I'm going to plug that in. We get 4, and I substituted in 5 here. And then when I actually simplify that, I get 19 as the answer. And then same thing here, I plug in a 5 for this t here. And I get, when I evaluate that, I get 152. And so my answer is 19, 152. And that's all you're doing. It's just plugging in for t and getting the point. So on your own, go ahead and do 3 and 4 on your worksheet, and then you can check with your neighbors and just make sure that you all match. I don't have the answers posted here. So pause until you're done with that. Okay, so the next section that we're going to do is called eliminating the parameter t, and t is that part that we were substituting in before. And this sounds like it would be hard, but it's actually not that terrible if you just kind of memorize the steps to it. So here's your two steps. We're going to use the x equation and solve for t, and I'll show you that in a second. And then we're going to substitute that into the other equation. So for example, let's say you have x equals t minus 2, and then the other equation is y equals t squared. So the first step says to use the x equation to solve for t. So I'm going to come to the x equation here. I'm going to solve for t, so I'm adding 2 to both sides so that these 2's cancel out, and you get x plus 2 equals t. So you're done with the first one. We used the x equation, and we solved for t. Now we're going to substitute this into the other equation. And basically, since it's y equals t squared, you can substitute in for that t. And so you would get y equals x plus 2 squared. So I substituted this x plus 2 into the t. And then that's it, you're done. And so what you just found is called the rectangular equation. So you have the two kinds. You have parametric equations and you have rectangular equations. Parametric is when it's like x equals something and y equals something. Rectangular equation is what you're used to, where it's just y equals x blah 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 blah. So rectangular is regular equations, okay? So I want you to go ahead and do 17 through 20 on your worksheet. Pause this until you're done with that. Check your answers. Okay, so now the last thing that we're going to do with parametric equations is to make parametric equations. So we're starting with our regular y equals x squared plus 4, and remember this is called the rectangular equation. It's just a regular equation, and we're going to change that into parametric. And it's actually super easy. It just looks kind of hard, but it's not. So your first step is you say x equals t, and I'm sorry that that didn't write very well. My pen was messing up. So we change the x into a t. And now in this original equation, anywhere you see x, change it for t. So you would get y equals t squared. So I just replaced x with t. And that's it. Now you have a parametric equation. So basically set x equal to t and then replace all the x's with t's. That's it. Okay? So on your worksheet, do 22 and 24. Check your answers and then pause this until you're done with that. Okay. So we finished with parametric equations, and you're going to take that worksheet home that you just did, and you're going to do the homework on it. So homework on the parametric equations part, and then on Thursday you're going to turn that paper in, and I'll check for the parametric equations classwork and also the homework. So that whole thing needs to be done. And of course the homework that's assigned to you is written on the actual paper. The dates are wrong because of the whole issue with me not being there last time, but obviously the homework would be due on Thursday, which is October 4th. So what I want you guys to now spend the rest of class doing is work on the worksheet that you have that's titled Lines, and you're going to be doing the problems 1, 2, 3, 15, 16, 17, 19, 21, and 22. And you can circle those if you want. You don't need this video anymore. And you're going to turn in this paper, the lines paper, into the sub before you leave. So you can disregard the homework that's written on there. You're only turning in these problems that I have listed here. Okay? So if you need any help, work with your colleagues, and hopefully this is all review for you guys. If it's not, let me know what's confusing next class period, and we'll go through that together. Okay? Thanks, guys.